We're here tonight, this demonstration outside Scotland Yard being called by the 6 groups who have been part of the coalition organising the mass campaign of demonstrations and other activities to end the genocide in Gaza, calling for a ceasefire. We've all called this meeting under the banner of Defend the Right to Protest, Drop the Charges Now. And I will say a little bit about why we've got those slogans in a minute. But first of all, I think it's really important to note what has happened in the few days since we had our mass demonstration assembling here on Saturday to mark the anniversary of the Nakba. We have seen the most significant shift in tone and attitude from this government for the last 20 months. It's not enough. Absolutely, it's not enough. And words are not enough. We know that those words have to be backed up by actions. But we should take heart that it is in part our protests, those protests that they wanted to go away, those protests that previous governments tried to ban, have had an impact. The fact that we haven't gone away, that we are still out in hundreds of thousands, has had an impact on the way the government are thinking. And as I saw someone post on Facebook today, our position has lasted longer than the government's position. Our position hasn't changed. We want justice for the Palestinians, we want an end to the genocide, we want a ceasefire. Their position has changed because ours hasn't, and we should take heart from that and be prepared to be back on the streets again. And I'll give you the date of the next demonstration during the course of today, this evening. But the reason we're here under the banner of Defend the Right to Protest, Drop the Charges, is that for the last 20 months, as we've been trying to mobilise these demonstrations for Palestine, our movement has faced attacks, it's faced smears, it's faced attempts to ban us, and it's faced increasing numbers of restrictions. Under legislation, the Crime and Policing Bill, the police are telling us, putting more and more restrictions on where we can meet, where we can assemble, when we can march, and where we can march. The right to protest, the right to march, is a fundamental mark of any democratic society. And the fact that we have to argue and argue and argue every time we want to organise a protest is a shame on this democracy. So we want to defend the right to protest. We're also saying drop the charges, because shamefully, as you will know, following our protest on January the 18th, Chris Nineham, an officer of the Stop the War Coalition, and Ben Jamal, who's director of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, have been charged with various charges of incitement and other things, and will be appearing in court in July to answer those charges. They've been charged and they're being put on trial. And we should say, we want those charges dropped, that it's our movement that is being put on trial, and we will be mounting a political defence of the right to protest and a call for the charges against Ben and Chris to be dropped. In addition to that, 10 members of the different coalition groups have been interviewed by the police. Officers of the different parts of the coalition have been interviewed by the police following January the 18th, and we still do not know whether they will be charged or not, whether they'll be brought to trial alongside or in addition to Chris and Ben. So we want to make sure, through all the protests we're having around here and the rallies we're having as part of the Defend the Right to Protest, that no charges are brought against those people. So it's really important that our main focus is on
other people were also arrested, other people were also charged.
Okay.
Thank you for forgetting them.
Okay, it's really important that whilst we maintain our defence of the right to protest and a call for the charges against anyone who's been arrested on any Palestine demonstrations for taking part in those peaceful protests to be dropped, that we do remember that our main focus is on justice for the Palestinian people and an end to the genocide and ceasefire. So we're running the two campaigns alongside each other. So we've got a few speakers for you tonight, and then we will be doing some chanting, and then we'll give you some dates of the next activities that we're going to be involved in, including a heads up. Friday night we've called another emergency protest outside Downing Street, so just over the other side here, to call on the government to back their words with actions. They've said the right thing, now they have to stop arming Israel, so we will be back here on Friday night. So with that, I'm going to move to our first speaker. Our first speaker tonight, he's come down to be with us. He's got to go away again as soon as he's spoken, but I'm so pleased that he's given us time to be here tonight. Please welcome Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for being here. I'm here with my good friend Adnan Hussein, the MP for Blackburn, who is also part of our independent alliance group in Parliament. And we've just come over from the House of Commons chamber, and it really is a demonstration today of the bankruptcy of British politics, when the opposition and the government are arguing with each other about who's most effective at deporting people from this country, rather than being proud of our multicultural, multilingual, multinational society. So some of us are not going to descend into that gutter of politics where we blame migrants for the lack of investment in health, in housing, in education, and all the other things that matter in society. We've had 27, I think it is, national demonstrations now concerning Palestine, and we'll carry on demonstrating as long as it takes. It's often very frustrating on a demonstration. You don't think anything's changing because of it. You don't think your presence in the cold or the rain or the sun or whatever the weather is like marching through London makes any difference. But you know what it does? It makes two differences. One is it is a message of solidarity to the Palestinian people in Gaza, in the West Bank, in the refugee camps, that somebody around the world does support them, does recognise the awful plight they're in. And secondly, it is a message not just to our government, but to governments all over the world. Some change their position more quickly than others. Well done the Irish government, well done the Norwegian government, and others moved so massively. And it means that we all then have an argument that the British government should do exactly the same. We've been challenging the issue of arms supplies and arms sales, and yesterday David Lammy came to Parliament and announced that arms supplies to Israel had ceased and there weren't any more. Sadly, the information we've got is the very opposite. But there's been a very large amount of arms sales to Israel over the last few months. And once again, I demanded that we stop supplying parts for the F-35 jet, because that is the crucial element in Israel's armory, because it's that jet that is bombing the schools, the hospitals, the roads and the homes of people in Gaza. The rather lame answer the government gives is that these parts are put into the global supply chain for F-35 jets, and they can't do anything about that because that would stop the global supply chain of parts for the F-35 jets. And just unpick that one for a moment. Is he seriously telling me, the Prime Minister, or David Lammy that is, seriously telling me that nobody keeps track of vital components to an F-35 jet? They do. Every single one of those components is tracked all the way through, from assembly, manufacture, delivery and final usage. It is utter nonsense. If they wanted to stop supplying parts for the F-35 jet, they could, above all they should, if they want to protect Palestinian life. And we will carry on making those demands. But the atmosphere, the language has changed dramatically because of the horror story that people are seeing day in, day out on television, of children starving to death, of doctors being forced to perform operations without anaesthetic or even antiseptic in dealing with the wounds of many people, and children dying of thirst and starvation in the 21st century live on television. It is unbelievably disgusting and disgraceful. And when the history of this period of the 21st century is written, those politicians that condoned the sale of arms, that condoned the use of those arms, that allowed all this to continue, will be utterly condemned for it. And that's where our actions come in, because the right to protest is part and parcel of the right to bring about political change. And that is why our marches are so important. We organise them well. They're designed to be peaceful, they're designed to be inclusive, they're designed to be a representation of people's views all over the country. And more than 1 million people have joined in those demonstrations. We'll carry on demonstrating, we'll carry on marching, we'll carry on demanding, so that we can bring an end to the occupation of Gaza and the West Bank. We'll carry on protesting until the Palestinian people are able to live in peace and justice. And we'll be very proud of the diversity of our demonstration, whether they're Jewish, Muslim, Christian, Hindu or anything else. We are a united movement, united for peace, united for justice, and united to support the Palestinians.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jeremy, and thank you for being such a colleague. Can you just dial it down a bit, please? Thank you, Jeremy, for being such a consistent voice for Palestine in Parliament and down the years. Our next speaker is someone who's been another consistent voice for Palestine down the river at the County Hall in the Greater London Assembly. Please welcome Zoe Garbett, who's a Green member of the Greater London Assembly. Thank you, Zoe.
Hello. Thank you so much for coming. Is this right? Yeah. Thank you so much for coming here this evening. You've got an amazing lineup of incredible activists who are organising against the genocide and also organising against the burning of our planet. I'm an elected Green in the London Assembly, so there's 25 people who are elected to hold the Mayor of London to account, and there's 3 Greens with a really proud history of protecting the right to protest as well as our civil liberties. I sit on the Police and Crime Committee. I'm the only Green on the Police and Crime Committee. I'm the only left voice, and I'm the only one holding the Met to account on its policing of London streets. I'm the only one who doesn't think that the Met need more money to police protest in our city, and I'm the only one that opposed a recommendation that they need more funding to protest our streets. I also am the only one that doesn't think it's right that the way that they protest the policing and police the protest on the on the 18th of January. I don't think it's right that they stormed the Quaker House, and I don't think it's right the way they stormed student encampments. I also don't think it's right the way this government has kept these laws in place. They could have repealed them when they were elected and they didn't. Instead, they're adding to them with restrictions like things on face masks. And we need to hold this government to account to repeal the oppressive over-policing of protest. I've been pushing the Met to put clear guidance out on how they police protest, but I know that it's not enough to just hold the Met to account and appeal to their morality or lack of it. I know that it's organising, it's grassroots organising and collective resistance that's the way we make change. We have seen this in the way that genocide apologists are getting crowded out and have less and less space. We know that because of the way that we've organised, that we've shown up on our streets and made it loud and clear that not opposing genocide is wrong. We need to keep defending the right to protest. We saw 500,000 people out on our streets on Saturday, so really congratulations for everyone who showed up and showed your solidarity. We need to protect the right to protest. We need to drop the charges against Ben Jamal and Chris Nineham. We need to drop the charges against the Filton 18, and we need to drop the charges against the SOAS students. Thank you very much for showing up, and let's defend the right to protest.
Thank you. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you so much for being here and for those words. Our next speaker is from Liberty, the campaigning group for freedom and justice. Please welcome Nazmul Hussein, who's a legal officer for Liberty. He can tell you more about what he does and what Liberty does and their role in our campaign. Please welcome Nazmul.
Thank you all for being here this Wednesday evening and giving up your time for this important cause. We stand in solidarity with our friends in the Palestine Coalition, those who are arrested and still facing charges for doing nothing but simply exercising their lawful right to protest against the ongoing genocide of the Palestinians. Hundreds of protesters, including our friends Ben Jamal and Chris Nineham, earlier this year were arrested and charged under anti-protest laws introduced in 2023. These allowed the police to restrict protests that cause more than minor disruption, whatever that's supposed to mean. I'm not sure if the government and the police know this, but protest is meant to be noisy. It's meant to disrupt. It's meant to draw attention to the causes that mean something to us. These powers were a result of years of anti-protest laws and irresponsible and divisive rhetoric by the government, demonizing protesters who dare to challenge authority. What we're doing here today, right now, is something that the government tried to stop. These powers were used by the police in very sinister, confusing and repressive ways to restrict protest and criminalize protesters. We've seen these protest powers used in a very targeted way, especially over the last 18 months against the Palestine solidarity movement across the country. At Liberty, we took the government to court about these powers because they were unlawful and undemocratically introduced. 2 weeks ago, we won that case in the Court of Appeal. We beat the government and we successfully defended our right to protest. The court ruled that government ministers need to respect the law and can't just do whatever they want. Just as we argued 2 years ago when we first brought the case, these powers to restrict protests for more than minor disruption were always unlawful. But successive governments, both the Tories and Labour, tried to defend these anti-protest laws in the High Court and the Court of Appeal. They lost both times in court, wasting public funds and time, all the while thousands of people were dying in Palestine. All while the police were continuing to arrest and charge protesters using these unlawful powers. Now, the law couldn't be clearer. We have the right to protest and make our voices heard. We're now calling for the government to review every arrest and reconsider every prosecution under these laws, including our friends Ben and Chris. We've seen the power of protest bring over 400,000 people together last weekend during the National March for Nakba Day. And throughout the last 18 months, week in, week out, at both national and local grassroots levels, to call for an end to the genocide and the UK's involvement in it. There's an undeniable movement for justice and liberation going on, which the government tried to divide and suppress. Instead of the Labour government learning from the mistakes of the previous government, it continues the attack on protest and civil freedom. Going through Parliament right now is a proposal to ban the use of face coverings at protests. Labour copied this bill from the Conservatives almost word for word last year. People should feel safe to protest and not criminalised for it. The way we resist government attempts at clamping down on protests is by continuing to go out on the streets like we are today, as we have done throughout history. We beat the government twice already to defend our right to protest, and we won't hesitate to do it again if we have to. We need to exercise and tell others about our right to protest and continue to speak out and make our voices heard. Protest is one of the ways we can expose and fight against injustice and achieve meaningful change together, in our thousands and in our millions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam, for those words. Let's remember the right to protest is something we fought to win, something we fought to defend, and we must continue to defend it. You know, let me tell you something. Our critics, our enemies say that our marches are hate marches and they bring disorder to the streets of London. Well, let me give you some figures. On Saturday, the Metropolitan Police reported there were 7 arrests on our demonstration. One of those was a mistake. One of those was someone who punched one of our protesters. And one of those was someone who breached the conditions of the counter-protest. They wouldn't go in to the bit that had been allocated to the protesters. So take those 3 out, that's 4 people on our march were arrested. We don't know why. I suspect there were more arrests in and outside Wembley Stadium on Saturday, where there was a big football match being played. We are not hate marchers. We are peaceful marchers, and it's really important that we do continue to stress that. So before I introduce our next speaker, and the reasons will be obvious in a minute, let's do a bit of chanting. Defend the right to protest, drop the charges now. Defend the right to protest, drop the charges now. Defend the right to protest, drop the charges now. Defend the right to protest, drop the charges now. And now I will introduce our next speaker. He's the Vice Chair of Stop the War Coalition, Chris Nineham.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Alex, and thanks to everyone for coming and for the tremendous support there has been for those of us who have been arrested. This movement has faced unprecedented harassment from the police from the start. Every single one of our national marches has had control orders placed on it, something never seen on peaceful protests before. The police themselves have boasted of record numbers of officers being called from across the country for every single demo. In January the 18th this year, they banned us from marching to the BBC. On the 11th of November on 2023, they tried to get us to call the march off altogether. Journalists have had their homes raided in the morning. Young activists are languishing in prison for the crime of putting graffiti on arms factories. And on January the 18th, in a major escalation, as you know, myself and Ben Jamal and 13 other leading figures in the movement were arrested, charged, or have been called in for police interview. We should be under no doubt this is a serious and deeply political attack on the right to protest and on free expression in this country. It constitutes a real moment of danger for anyone who dissents to the direction the government is trying to take this country in. And it is essential that we respond, which is why this evening's protest is so important. And why are we being attacked? Why are we being harassed? For the crime of protesting for peace, for calling for an end to the systematic killing of children, for opposing the deliberate flattening of hospitals and the ethnic cleansing of a whole people, and doing so peacefully, despite the claims that have been propagated by politicians, by journalists, and I have to say by the Metropolitan Police ourselves. We are not violent hate marchers. Despite verified police harassment on many of our demonstrations, there are more arrests at the average Glastonbury festival than there are on our demonstrations. Anyone who believes that this is not a political attack is living in a fantasy land. The truth is, there is no way, in particular, the attack on myself and other leading figures in the movement would have happened without the sanction of the Home Secretary and probably the Prime Minister. And the reason, and this is also important, the reason why they are looking for more and more authoritarian ways of dealing with protests, and why indeed there is in general a drift towards more authoritarianism in government in general, is that the government knows they are wrong on the issue and they know they are losing the argument. Now, David Lammy, after 18 or 19 months of enabling the carnage, if we're honest, has come finally to agree with us that, in his words, what Israel is doing is extremism, that it is dangerous and that it is repellent. Of course, these are just words and we need action, but we should recognise that words matter, that arguments matter, and the government's position, the government's argument is crumbling in the face of opposition. And this would not have happened without the mass protests here and around the world. And I salute everyone who was on the magnificent demonstration on Saturday, and everyone who has continued to march and to protest and to speak out in the face of demonisation and intimidation. Your resilience, your staying power is now starting to pay off, and we must finish the job. why, as has been announced, we've called a protest on Friday evening to demand that the government goes beyond words, goes beyond rhetoric, and stops arming Israel. But I want to end on this by saying that tonight we have another demand. Under pressure, as politicians, leading politicians have said, the Foreign Secretary has accepted, essentially, that our cause is just and our case is unanswerable. It is only right, it is only logical in these circumstances that the government and the police drop all the charges, release all the prisoners, stop harassing a movement that has been vindicated. This is a movement for justice, a movement for freedom, and a movement for humanity. Thank you very much. See you on Friday.
Thank you very much, Chris. So on Friday we do hope to see you there. Now, one of the things, because we've been concerned about the restrictions being put on our protests and the attempts to stop us assembling where we want to assemble and march where we want to march, is the six groups in the Palestine Coalition have written several times to ask for a meeting with Mark Rowley, who's the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police. We know he's met with people who are in his ear telling them about our demonstrations and what he should be doing with them. So we've asked for a meeting in return to say we'd like to talk to you about our demonstrations. So far, he has refused to meet with us. So one of the things we're going to circulate this evening is we've got 5 questions for Mark Rowley. We'd like you to take some postcards, send them back to him. You know, we don't want them back. Put a stamp on it if you don't mind, and send them back to him. So we do want to keep the pressure on to say that if you are agreeing routes for demonstrations with groups like the Board of Deputies, you shouldn't be doing that. You should be agreeing routes for demonstrations with the people who are actually organising the demonstration. So do take those postcards and do send them in to Mark Rowley. So our next speaker is from another Palestine Forum for Britain, one of the other organisations, one of the 6 organisations in the Palestine Coalition. Please welcome Luzaine Abdullah.
Over 14,000 babies now hang between life and death in Gaza. And yet the British government devotes more energy to suppressing our voices than it does to stop mass killing, than it does to stop producing F-15 parts in British factories. Instead of confronting war crimes, it criminalizes resistance. This isn't about maintaining public order, it's about state repression. The British state has shown more loyalty to Zionist power than it has ever extended to justice or to human life. What it fears, what this government fears, is not chaos, but truth. Because truth spreads, it exposes, and it inspires the masses. This is not about security. It's about silencing resistance and protecting systems of power. I know this because I've experienced it myself. Police came to my home early hours of the morning, no uniforms, no warrant, no explanation, just 3 large men in an unmarked vehicle, removing me from the safety of my own home because I spoke out. Because I refuse to be silent. The harassment is constant. For months I faced coordinated efforts to intimidate and silence me. But I'm a Palestinian woman, and I will not be broken. And I understand why they do this. They do this out of fear because we're gaining ground. I understand that the recent shift in the narrative is a result of our pressure, not their conscience. There is no conscience in 10 Downing Street, only blood on polished shoes. So the fight is ours, and the price to pay doesn't compare to what our brothers and sisters in Gaza are facing. This is not just about Palestine. It's about every system that sustained colonialism, capitalism, and repression. The fight to abolish anti-Zionism, Zionism in general, is part of a broader fight for freedom, for justice, for life over profit. We're in this for the long run. We're not just fighting for the right to protest. We're fighting for the right to grieve, to speak, to allow a people to exist, to seize the killing of women, men, and children of color, to not have blood on our hands, a basic right, a moral imperative. So it's no wonder that every time the state tries to silence us, it breeds more resistance, because we know we're being effective. So remember this, Palestinians have the right to resist. That's not controversial. It's recognized in international law, the 4th Geneva Convention, countless UN resolutions, and the historical duty itself. Resistance is a duty.
Thank you, Luzaine. Defend the right to protest! Drop the charges now! Defend the right to protest! Drop the charges now! Defend the right to protest! Drop the charges now! So our next speaker is Shams Begum, who's from the Filton 18 campaign. Chris mentioned the people, our comrades who are in prison for graffitiing arms factories. Part of our campaign is to target arms factories, to stop arming Israel, to get the government to stop arming Israel, to draw attention to what is being built in this country in order to rain down terror on the people of Gaza. So Shams is from that campaign to defend the Filton 18. Please give her a warm welcome.
Sorry, thank you for your patience. I have a sore throat, so I just wanted to make sure I was prepared and not going to choke, so I'm going to attempt not to choke. Where do I start? So the early mornings of the 19th of November, a young man was dragged out of his bed in front of his parents by 30 or more Met officers from up and down the country. I wouldn't be surprised if one of the guys standing out here today walked into that home and dragged my brother out. But what was his crime? What has he been alleged to do? So, in the beginning of August, 6 actionists were arrested at Elbit Systems. If you don't know what Elbit Systems is, Google it. But I'll tell you one thing. They are Israel's largest weapon manufacturers. They supply almost 85% of the weapons. So tell me why we have over 8 branches in the UK, and why does arms from those branches go out to Israel to support in the ongoing genocide and the murder of civilians? We know these Elbit systems create drones. Videos that we've seen recently come out. I saw something that shook me to my core. The other day on Instagram, if anyone has seen the little Palestinian boy who has cats, he loves a cat that he rescued. His name is Ahmed and Simba. His dad put up a little clip of a drone overhead, and he was afraid that drone was coming to kill him and his son. The little boy that I watched hold his cat in the same way I hold my cat, in the same way my little brother has held a cat. He was threatened to extinction. I waited to see what would happen to him. Thankfully, alhamdulillah, he's still alive. But our loved ones are still inside. The 6 that got arrested in August, they were followed shortly by 4 more. And they were arrested not under ordinary powers, they were arrested under counter-terror powers. Now tell me why, after the arrest, the charges were not terrorist charges. They were only common charges. Criminal damage. Criminal damage and no terrorism charges. But yet, the CPS claims that there is a potential terrorism connection. A potential terrorism connection. They didn't stop there, because on the 19th of November, officers raided up and down the country a further 8 homes, and they arrested young activists, again in relation to this. And that's where we have the Filton 18. The factory they are accused of attacking is an Garbett factory in Filton. If anyone has recently seen the video of Dr. Rahma on a van looking like the ambulances we see in Gaza, protesting outside, that is the factory they are accused of going into and dismantling the weapons and the drones that were going to be going out. They caused over 2.1 million worth of damage. They disrupted supply for a whole week. And what does that allow? It allowed a Palestinian to live a bit longer. I can't guarantee they're still alive, but I can guarantee they breathed for a day longer. We have seen increasing evidence coming out about how this is not just an ordinary case. There has been conversations happening between Garbett, the government, the CPS, Keir Starmer. One of them has recently come out in a Guardian article. You can look it up. The Attorney General, our UK Attorney General, shared the details of our CPS and the terrorism police contact details. With who? With the ambassador to the UK in Israel, Daniela. Now tell me why. And this happened merely a few weeks after the arrest of the first 10. Before my brother's bail hearing and before they were all remanded into prison in December, Keir Starmer held secret meetings with Garbett. The Freedom of Information Act has shown this. So tell me, how is this justice?
Not justice. No justice.
Thank you. And I turn to you officers. I turn to you officers because my brother said something very powerful to me, and I'm going to reiterate what he said. You have a duty to serve. You have the right to protect human life and humanity. Well, guess what? Nearly 62,000 people are dead in Gaza. Over 70,000 are children. And over 1,400 are healthcare workers like me. Over 200 people are journalists. What are their crimes? But it took an impending famine for our government to speak. What would it take for you to lay down your badge and not arrest the people that stand up for humanity? Yeah. You have a conscience and a heart. You are to protect and serve humanity. Please remember your rights and the oath that you took. Yeah. Because the officer tried when my mom turned to him and said, "Why are you arresting my son? He's about justice and protecting children." So remember that the next time you go to arrest one of us, because you're arresting the wrong people. Yeah. And you are stained with the blood. You are stained with the blood of 63,000 Gazans and Palestinians that have lost their lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear it again for Sham. It's a very powerful and heartfelt speech, and we send all our best wishes to the Filton 18. Can you imagine a world, well, you can imagine a world because we're in it, where an 87-year-old Holocaust survivor is called in for questioning by the police for taking part in a protest against the genocide in Gaza? That is one of the really topsy-turvy things of the situation we're in at the moment. But we're pleased to say that Stephen Kapos is completely unrepentant and undaunted. And if by interviewing Stephen and others, the police and the powers that be are attempting to intimidate and demoralise us, well, we answered them on Saturday, didn't we? And the fact that Stephen's here tonight is an answer as well. Please welcome Stephen Kapos.
nearly 88 now.
Happy birthday to you.
We have to be warned. The end game of gradual suppression of free speech and protest may be full-blown fascism.
Yes.
We have been warned before. To the massacre of World War II Holocaust are a warning and a lesson for all times. I was in hiding as a 7-year-old Jewish boy on false papers in December 44 and January 45 in Budapest, when the Murray Street Jewish Hospital, which was about 50 minutes walk away from our location, was attacked by an armed band of Arrow Cross, a Hungarian fascist formation, many of them armed teenagers. 84 people were executed, shot in pairs in the courtyard of the hospital. Patients, nurses, and 19 doctors. The following day, they attacked another hospital and care home with a total of 244 Jewish victims. Another warning to our times comes from the eminent Hungarian Jewish poet Miklós Radnóti, which I would like to read. Radnóti was called up into the infamous Jewish slave labor formations attached to the Hungarian and German armies. They were marked by yellow armbands, starved, subjected to repeated death marches. Only a few weeks before liberation, in April 45, he was executed and his body thrown into a mass grave. After liberation, his body was exhumed and his blood-stained last poems were found in his pocket. Here is one of them, a warning titled Fragment. It's beautifully written in his native language, but the message survives translation. In such an age I dwelt on earth, when men had fallen so beneath their nature that they, unbidden, for their lust would kill, and foaming staggered in the tangles of confusion, possessed by tainted creeds, bewildered by delusions. In such an age I dwelt on earth, when spies were honored, and the murderer and the thief were held as heroes. But he whose zeal, it seemed, lacked voice and violence, would be abhorred as if he bore a pestilence. In such an age I dwelt on earth, when he who would protest perforce must hide, and know his fist in bitterness and shame, that nations in its madness laughed and thought it good to taste such fatal horrors, drunk with filth and blood. In such an age I dwelt on earth, when to the child the mother was accursed. The woman who miscarried would rejoice. The live man envied the entwined and wormy death.
I'm filming.
While on his table poison thickened, foamed and spread. In such an age I dwelt on earth, when a dumb poet must wait and hold his peace. Hope for the day when he might find a voice, for none could here pronounce the dark, demanded verse, but that Isaiah, master of the fitting curse, and translated by Susanna Oswald and Frederick Turner. The end game may be full-blown fascism if we are not vigilant. But it is a process, as we have seen it with the Holocaust. In Hungary, it started with Europe's first racist legislation limiting entries of Jews to professions. Then the repression grew gradually against communists, trade unionists, Jews. Later, in the war years, it accelerated with ever more humiliating legislation, including by summer 44, wearing of the yellow star for all Jews, then the deportation into Auschwitz and being forced into hiding to evade the massacres. Today in the UK too, repressive legislations have been enacted already, and we must watch and resist the direction of travel, because we now know that the possible endgame is fascism. We look at Germany and the US, where repression and police brutality is already further along the line. And we can see the full-blown fascistic endgame already in front of our eyes in Gaza. We must act not peacefully but effectively with full and growing solidarity in ever-growing numbers, now, before it's too late. Thank you.
Thank you. All power to you, Steve. We stand with you. You know that, don't you? So we've got 3 more speakers coming now from the groups that are part of the coalition. We've built a really united coalition for this movement for Palestine in the last 20 months. And as Stephen said, we organise peacefully, we organise effectively, and we showed on Saturday that we are not getting smaller as our critics and enemies wish. We can put hundreds of thousands on the streets to march for Palestine, and we will be doing that again on Saturday, June the 21st. So please make a note of that, our next national demonstration. So our next speaker is from the Muslim Association of Britain. Please welcome Boualia Mohammed.
Brothers, sisters, comrades, assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you all. We stand here today not just in protest, but in confrontation with a system that has shown us time and time again where its priorities lie. We stand here because this is a state that has spent more resources policing and clamping down on those standing against the genocide than stopping the genocide itself. While thousands of Palestinian children are buried beneath rubble, it is protest banners, kufiyas and chants that have been met with force. While Israeli bombs turn homes, hospitals and refugee camps to dust, it is our movement and communities that are treated as the threat. The British state is not neutral, and the police are not neutral. And this crackdown is not about public order. This is about protecting power. The power of a state that arms Israel, that excuses apartheid, that greenlights genocide, and now wants to shut down those who dare to call it out. This is not just about Palestine. This is about the precedent that is being set. This is about who gets to speak in this country, and which voices are amplified and which are silenced. About who is allowed to protest genocide and who is punished for it. This is not just a failure of the Met. This is just a few bad policies. This is not just a few bad policies by heavy-handed officers. This is the deliberate outcome of a government that backs Israeli war crimes abroad and suppresses dissent at home. But what the state fails to understand is this: solidarity does not break under pressure, it becomes stronger. Every arrest, every restriction, every new protest law, they are not signs of strength, they are signs of fear. Fear of how many of us there are. Fear of how loud and clear our message has become. Fear of a generation that is politically awake and morally fearless. We refuse to maintain the status quo. We refuse to maintain business as usual so long as this country is complicit in an ongoing genocide. So to the Met Police, I say this: you cannot shut down a movement. And this is the largest movement the world has seen. And it is not stopping. We will keep marching, and we will keep organizing, and we will keep escalating until Palestine is free. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Boualia. It's been great to work with the Muslim Association of Britain on this campaign. One of the things the police tell us when we say we want to have another national march is they're worried about the cumulative impact of our demonstrations. You know, at one point they said, you've done it 21 times. You know, isn't that enough? Well, we've done it 27 times now, and we're going to keep doing it. I'm proud of the cumulative impact of our demonstrations, and we should be proud because, in part, they have forced the government to recognise that there's a genocide and recognise that Israel may be guilty of war crimes. Something we were saying right at the start, using starvation as a method of war is a war crime. And our government has finally, as a result of the cumulative impact of our marches, come to realise that. So we should be proud of what we've done. Our next speaker is the Deputy Director of Palestine Solidarity Campaign. Again, one of the key organisers behind this coalition and of the demonstrations and the boycott and divestment campaign. Please welcome Simon Foster, Deputy Director of PSC.
Thank you for inviting me here to speak on behalf of PSC tonight. Our director, Ben Jamal, was one of those outrageously charged after being part of a delegation who attempted to lay flowers after the January 18th demonstration. Ben would have loved to be here tonight to address you himself, but unfortunately he spent all day in interviews because despite the British state's attempts to suppress us, we keep growing and we are not going away. I want to take this moment to remind everyone why it is that we held our demonstration on January the 18th, why it is that we brought 500,000 people to the streets on Saturday, and why it is that we are protesting again outside Downing Street on Friday at 6:30 p.m. 2 days ago, top UN official Tom Fletcher warned that if the world continued to stand by and allow Israel's total blockade of the Gaza Strip to continue, that 14,000 babies would die in the next 48 hours. Comrades, I am horrified to say that those 48 hours have been and gone, and our government did nothing to stop Israel's genocide machine. For the past 19 months, our government, our institutions, our universities and our media have all been complicit in the wholesale slaughter, starvation and ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people. Blood on their hands. All of us have had to watch the scenes of parents holding aloft the body parts of their children ripped to shreds by bombs, of people burned alive while sheltering in refugee tents, and of babies with ribs protruding, starving to death. Millions of people in this country and around the world have chosen to say no to being complicit in these war crimes. That is why we march, that is why we protest, and that is why they are so scared of us. What the police did on that day in January to target not only the leaders of our movement in Chris and Ben, but also dozens of other normal people who came out to stand up against genocide is truly shameful. We have heard from young people who were picked out from a crowd and arrested for allegedly standing on the wrong side of the road at the wrong time. We've heard from pregnant women handcuffed and thrown in police vans. Many of these people have now been charged, throwing their lives into disarray, facing thousands in legal fees and the prospect of a criminal record. And for what? For attending a peaceful protest against the genocide, for calling for a free Palestine, or for the worst crime of all, carrying some flowers alongside a Holocaust survivor for all of those murdered in Gaza. Less than 2 months after that demonstration on January the 18th, when police from all over the country descended on London to suppress our protest, another visitor arrived in London in secret, just a few roads away from where our delegation was stopped. Gideon Saar, the Israeli foreign minister who defended the cutting off of aid to Gaza, who claimed that creating a Palestinian state would be tantamount to creating a Hamas state, and has said that the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from their land is the most moral and humane thing to do, visited London. Whilst here, he met with David Lammy for a smiling photograph, but he also met with another man, Phil Rosenberg, the president of the Board of Deputies of British Jews. The same group which attempts to dictate to the police on where our demonstrations can go, and which hosted the Commissioner of the Met Police for an event the day after our January demonstration, where they jointly celebrated the action taken to suppress our march. The position of the police and this government are clear. Red carpets for the war criminals, handcuffs for the peaceful protesters. The best way for any of us to fight back against the police repression and these unjust protests and these unjust charges is to keep protesting, to refuse to be silenced, and to remain on the right side of history. I will end with these words from Haytham El-Msari from Gaza, reflecting on the scenes of demonstrations across the world last Saturday. When I saw the videos of the protest held for us, I couldn't hold back my tears. They poured down in joy, not because our suffering had ended, but because the world had finally started to see the truth. Your solidarity is the light in our darkness. Your support is the hope we cling to in our darkest days. Your care eases a pain that has become unbearable. Thank you to everyone who raised their voice for us, to everyone who wasn't afraid to speak the truth, to everyone who carried our pain as if it were their own. We will never forget you. You are in our hearts, in our prayers, in our hopes. All our love and gratitude to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Really powerful words there, sent to us from Gaza. And it is a reminder, isn't it? Sometimes, if you ever hear anyone telling you that marching from A to B or going on demonstrations doesn't achieve anything, what's the point? Well, one point is the people in Gaza see us when we're on the streets in London, and it gives them hope. It raises their hearts, and that's one important reason that we must continue to keep demonstrating. Before I introduce our final speaker, I just want to remind you of some dates. On Friday, we're going to be across the road at Downing Street telling Keir Starmer to put actions behind his words. That Israel is committing a genocide, they are committing war crimes, but we're arming them. So if they mean what they say, they must stop arming Israel. So that's on Friday, 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock, Friday evening. Saturday, June the 21st, our next national demonstration. We'll publicise the route and assembly in due course, but Saturday, June the 21st, 12 o'clock, assembly, another march through central London. Let's make it as big as the one we've just had. And then on July the 7th, Monday, July the 7th, please make a note of this date, Ben and Chris will be appearing in court. Their trial will be starting on Monday, July the 7th, and we're going to have a protest outside the City Court, what's it called? City Magistrates Court near Bank, near Bank Tube Station, from about 9 o'clock onwards in the morning, Monday, July the 7th. So there's lots of activity we need you to be involved in and building. Now, our next speaker, our final speaker, is going to put some fire in your belly. Do you want some fire in your belly? Yeah. Please welcome Shamil Hussein from Friends of Al-Aqsa.
What's up, London? Oh, come on! What day is today? What day? I'm asking if I've forgotten. On a Wednesday evening, you lot come out because we defend the right to protest. Look, the political elite, they're not blind, they're not deaf, and believe it or not, they're not even dumb. So what does that make them? That makes them deeply complicit in the genocide that is taking place right now, where thousands upon thousands of children are being killed, where famine is looming, where genocide is being taking place for 18 months. That makes them complicit. That means if they're not blind, deaf or dumb, that means they know exactly what they're doing. They know what they're doing, and that makes it so much worse. But guess what? Because they know what they're doing is wrong, they also know what they're doing is wrong. They are using every single avenue to hold us back. Every single avenue, every single means, be it the media, be it the police, be it every other institution that's trying to hold us back. But we see the cracks. We see that the institutions are crumbling. For the first time In 18 months, I wake up and I have a look at the front pages of newspapers and I see they're saying that enough is enough. Is John Rees held accountable? How much more can go on? This is not because they've suddenly woken up and had conscience. No, this is because the continuous pressure everyone is putting on. This is because when they thought we would disappear, when they hoped that the movement would dissipate in the winter, in the autumn months, when they thought it was too hot, that we will stay out and party instead, we came to the streets to continue to stand for justice. We do not disappear, and guess what? We will not disappear until we see an end to genocide. And that is clear from last Saturday. Over 500,000 people came to the streets because we are serious. We are serious people with this serious agenda because people are being killed. And that is serious. There's no other place on the 21st of June I would rather be than on the streets of London again, stand shoulder to shoulder with every single one of you to say, cease fire now, end the genocide, free Palestine, free Palestine, free Palestine. So, we will not be intimidated, we will not bow down, we will not cower, we will not stay at home. In fact, we will come out even more, we will resist even more, we will be on the streets even more, we'll raise our voices even louder until we see a free Palestine! And if you know me, you've heard this before, a quick test as always. When's the next national demo? 21st of June! Saturday, 21st of June, so we've got plenty of time to make the 21st of June even bigger than the last demonstration we had. We on with that! Because our message needs to be clear to the political elite that we will continue and apply that pressure until they see that justice must be done. Free Palestine. Thank you very much.
That's a very good note to end on, isn't it? Saturday, June the 21st. So let's just finish with some chanting. 1. We are the people. 2.
We won't be silent.
3.
Stop the bombing now, 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 now.
1.
We are the people.
2.
We won't be silent.
3.
Stop the bombing now, 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 now.
1.
We are the people.
2.
We won't be silent.
3.
Stop the bombing now, 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 now.
Defend the right to protest. Defend the right to protest.
Drop the charges now.
Defend the right to protest.
Drop the charges now.
Defend the right to protest.
Drop the charges now.
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free. We are all Palestinians.
Thanks very much, everyone. See you on Friday outside Downing Street. See you on Saturday, June the 21st for the next national demo. Thanks for turning up tonight. Thank you. Don't forget to take some postcards. Come and get some postcards.
A charge of James Gunn is must be destroyed on the placard. The charge has now been dropped. CPS have given up on them. So that's a good sign. They might give up on others as well. Because there's something